Do you bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go! Go! Oh, it is a Tampa Tuesday morning here on Birds 365, because that's where the Eagles are headed next Monday. But we got to get there first. And we get there by talking about the Birds here on Birds 365 for the next 4 days. You got Mac and Mac, McMullen and McDonald here to shoot the Eagle breeze with you for the next couple hours. Nick Sirianni revealed all yesterday as to how the Eagles are going to get this thing turned around. Huh, Johnny Mac?
Yeah, he did. Very revealing now. A typical Nick Sirianni, trying to steady the ship. What else can you do at this point, though? So I'm not going to kill him for it. But no, nothing out of the ordinary, I would say. He keeps getting asked if he is going to change play colors, which, he had a one-word answer to that, which was no. And, I don't expect him to change play colors. I think that would be silly at that point. I think it was silly when they did it the first time. So I certainly would think it would be silly in week 19 going into the playoffs. I think it would be beyond silly. I don't know.
Let me follow that up then, because last night I did a show on WIP and I called it a brainstorming session to see if anybody could come up with any ideas how to turn a sinking ship around. And one person did suggest, well, if Nick Sirianni's going to sit up there, whatever, in his after game, day after press conference, and take a page completely out of Andy Reid's book, I got to do a better job. That's on me. I got to coach him up better. He's taken all the bullets, which I think is commendable, as a matter of fact. But it does get repetitious, and it gets to the point. I used to make fun of Andy Reid on how much he would say, it's on me. I got to do better. It just becomes background noise. And actually, I thought that one point it got so bad it was actually something that would make you laugh. But the new head coach is following the old head coach's lead, and he's taking all the blame. Well, then how about you take the responsibility too? If you're going to take the verbal blame, if you're going to stand up there and try and take it all on yourself, well, then how about following it up with some action? He continues to tell us that it's Nick Sirianni's offense. That when they were lambasting Brian Johnson for his play calling, it's my offense. He might be calling a play, but it's my offense. Well, then really make it your offense. How about you call the plays on Monday against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? I don't think it's near as outrageous as you do for him to say, all right, if the ship's going down, the captain better grab the wheel. Let me call the plays. You think that's ridiculous?
I don't think it's ridiculous. I think, I think it's because I know he's not doing it. I think it's a waste of time is how I would describe it. So, I mean, he said it to us, but 100 times.
Let me interrupt you, and I'll apologize. would you have not said after week 8 or 9, whenever it was when they were 8-1, well, it's ridiculous to think they swap out Sean Desai. They're 8-1. Come on, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I did, and I've said it pretty consistently. And again, if Nick hadn't told me 150 times he wasn't taking play calling back, I would entertain it. I mean, that's the only reason I don't entertain it. I'm not saying it's ridiculous from your standpoint. I'm not saying it's ridiculous from anybody else's standpoint. It's a natural conclusion. I'm saying he said it so many times. Now, he can lie. He's lied to us before. He's lied to us again.
That's what I'm getting at, John. It isn't like everything that comes from Nick Sirianni's lips is God's given truth.
But why do people want him to take over the play calling? If he's the worst coach in the world, why do you want that? What there's some of the things that, I saw Jeff Stoutland Hollis Thomas on Mark Farzetta's show said, why doesn't Jeff Stoutland take over play calling? Well, why the hell is it Jeff Stoutland calling plays? Where's he called plays? Where's that evidence? What I mean, there's certain things.
Sirianni was an offensive coordinator.
Sirianni was an offensive coordinator who didn't call plays, and then when he did call plays, it didn't go well. Early in the process here. But again, that's not my point. He could do it. It's not going to change anything. It's his offense. It's built to, the only thing that changes between Shane Steichen and Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni, and insert name next year if you want somebody else to do it next year, and Nick's still the head coach. The only thing that changes is the feel in the moment, which I think Shane was very good at.
Yep.
To be fair, the feel in the moment. That's the only thing that changes. The Big Cheesecake Factory menu is going to be the same. They're going to build the offense during the week. You're going to have a certain group of plays on 3rd and short, 3rd and middle, 3rd and long. Red zone, it's all mapped out. It's not like they go, hey, Brian Johnson, go make something up in the middle of the game. I think people believe that. That's not how it's done. So the only thing that changes is the feel in the moment. And I'm not saying that can't be important. It can be very important. But, I haven't seen the feel from Nick Sirianni. I've seen the feel from one guy, and you can't get him back. So unless you can figure out how to get Shane Steichen in as a consultant while he's the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, I don't think this offense is changing. And to me, I always say, and I'm pretty consistent with, not that there aren't many problems on this offense, because there are, but I got a hard time getting to them because I can't get past the defense, which is the much larger problem. To me, the offense comes down, and there were a couple things. Dallas Goedert with that weird quote about basically mailing it in at the end of the season. You got Chad Johnson for somebody.
Again, for the third time, I'm going to interrupt you in the first 8 minutes of the show. I apologize. Do you believe Dallas believes that? Or do you think he was just didn't have something to say and was spitballing and talking off the top of his head that, and you certainly have to point the finger at Dallas because he's got to be guilty of it, but he kind of made a sweeping statement about his teammates that they actually did take their foot off the gas when they qualified for the playoffs as early as they did. Now, I'm not asking whether he's accurate or not. I'm just asking you whether he really believes that.
He might have talked himself into it. That would be the best I would say. And that's why I was bringing up Chad, they're playing possum. Well, if they're playing possum, we're going to figure out pretty quickly. I mean, to me, it would be astonishingly silly to play possum. But they have talent on offense. They have talent. So to me, if everybody wakes up and Jalen Hurts brings his A game and A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith is healthy and the offensive line for the second consecutive season, everybody's a Pro Bowler or a Pro Bowl alternate, which is astonishing, by the way, every single 10 for 10. They have talent on the offensive side of the football. They don't have talent on the defensive side of the football, other than, certain guys on the front who aren't living up to their expectations. We can talk about that, but, if you were to grade the talent on defense, it's probably below average compared to the rest of the league, whereas offensively, it's well above average. So, maybe they can turn the switch on offensively. Certainly against Tampa Bay, maybe they can turn it on. I could buy that. I can't buy it defensively. I can't. I can't even envision a road, a path. It's easy to envision a path offensively. Just play clean football. Just don't make stupid mistakes. Let your best players take over. It's an easy path. It really is. Defensively, there's no path. There really isn't. And it's only gotten worse. I joke they're Benjamin buttoning the communication aspect. They're going backwards instead of you're supposed to get better as you go through the season. The communication increases as you go through the season, gets incrementally better. It's only gotten worse, partially because of the change of the defensive play callers, which to me, again, was a panic move. But offensively, because that's where we started, I mean, they got players. So you go 14-1. From a logical standpoint, you go 14-1 with Jalen Hurts as the starting quarterback, and then you go 10-1. And all of a sudden, you start losing games. So, and everybody, look, they don't want to blame the players, so they want to blame the coaches. I don't care who the coach is. Insert name. They're going to blame the coaches because they want to protect the players. That's fine.
When you say there, who are you referring to?
The fan base, the large portion of the fan base wants to protect the players versus the coach. It's easy to blame the coaches.
Easier to blame the coaches,
yeah.
Right.
Did they all of a sudden get stupid overnight? Did they all of a sudden, or did the rest of the league, from a logical standpoint, did the rest of the league, they woke up one day and they said, you know what, Nick Bosa is right. This is how you play the Eagles, and you can beat them at will. How dumb are they then? If they just woke up, they were getting their asses handed to them 24 out of 26 games, whatever it was, 25 out of 27. For over, well over a year, close to 2 years. And all of a sudden woke up the rest of the league, the rest of these dummies who couldn't figure it out, and said, oh, now we have the magic carpet. No, the players aren't performing up to the standard that they were before. And so offensively, I can see that switch being turned on. Defensively, I can't see that switch being turned on.
Then this lends me to one more question, and then I see our buddy Tommy Lawless ready to jump in for love a guest who's not only on time but early. That's why we love Tommy. If your read on the offense and defense talent-wise is accurate, which I believe it is, how come nobody's looking at Howie Roseman for the defense that he assembled?
I think people are starting to look at it and saying, I think you've seen he's no longer in the conversation for executive of the year. People gave him that 2-time executive of the year back to back.
The day he drafted Jalen Carter, he got it for the 2024.
That ain't happening. He ain't going to win that again. So I think people are starting to figure out that, there were and some of it, look, I mean, we can talk about injuries, in hindsight, they probably were counting on Nakobe Dean way too much. They were probably counting on Reed Blankenship way too much. And part of it is going into a different phase of understanding what's coming down the road with the quarterback and the money. And you got to start developing some younger players. And that's where I would if you put most of the onus on the coaching staff, developing younger players. If you want to criticize them, I would criticize them more towards that, getting them up to speed quickly. We talked about Nolan Smith. There should be a better path to him getting meaningful playing time that doesn't involve him playing Mike linebacker out of position. So, there's things to point out, but Howie's certainly one of them when it comes to the back seven, especially on defense.
Well, and I know one quote I saw yesterday that the Philadelphia Eagles, and when I say this, I mean everybody, Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni, all of his coaches. Nobody wanted to hear this. Javon Hargrave came out yesterday and took a shot at the Eagles for their chill practice.
Yeah, I saw that. I was thinking about you, Jody. Yeah. He said things are much tougher in San Francisco, which is no surprise. Kyle Shanahan's Mike Shanahan's son. I mean, yeah, he runs a tougher ship.
Nick Sirianni's, what's his dad's name? He keeps referring back to him, Fran. He's Fran's son. Why the hell's he so chill? He's a coach's son too. Same as Shanahan.
Well, remember and by the way, I've said consistently, and I still believe today, if it were up to Nick Sirianni alone, the Eagles would practice more. I've yet to meet the football coach
no one
that
in the
doesn't want to
Eagle
practice.
organization didn't want to hear that, because you're right. That indictment comes from the top down.
Yeah. So I think that's an organizational philosophy. And yeah, I mean, people are going to jump on it. Javon was a hell of a player here, and he's a hell of a player there, at least pass rushing wise. So, he was fine here, and he's fine there. So it didn't affect him either way because he's a good player. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's always, to me, it's always personnel first. Always, always, always. And that's when I say it all the time, Jody. When things were going good, I put it more on the personnel. When things are going bad, I put it more on the personnel. So at least I'm consistent. It's personnel first. Not to say there aren't some issues with this coaching staff, but I think most of it has to do with, as I said, player development, teaching, techniques, fundamentals, communication. I look at more at that than the nebulous play calling term, which I say, I don't know what they're trying to accomplish. And I get to talk to the coaches and watch the film and get the all 22. And I can't figure it out. So what makes you think you can figure it out and I'm not talking about you, but anybody who criticizes play calling on the moment when you're watching a play on television where you can't see? It's absurd. You're not judging play calling. You're judging play results.
Oh, I agree with that. But that's the want of the fan at home. They want to know. They want to believe they know more than those who are actually in charge. All right. I'm in charge here on Birds 365 of deciding when we go to break. And I'm deciding right now that we're going to break because Tommy Lawler from EaglesBlitz.com is in the green room. He's ready to jump in with us here on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their Fantasy Pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Appreciate you streaming in here on Birds 365. It's a playoff week, although it doesn't really feel like a playoff week. We'll see if Tommy Lawler concurs. He's laughing already. That's a good sign. From EaglesBlitz.com, longtime Eagles writer Tommy Lawler joins us here on Birds 365. And I say long time because you're sitting down and talking with two other longtime guys who've been following this league for a long time. Tommy, I don't forget about the Eagles. It's never happened to the Eagles before, but just in the history of the league, I can't remember as historic a collapse as this team has gone through in the last month and a half. Why? Give us your best psychological analysis. We're all trying and we're all coming up short, so I'm going to give you a shot here too, Professor Lawler. What the hell's happened to the Eagles?
Well, it feels like they did everything they could to get to 10-1. I mean, the team had to really battle there. If you think about the game against the Bills, the game against the Chiefs, and even in those games, they got some lucky breaks. Let's just be honest. If Valdez-Scantling catches that pass, Kansas City probably wins that game.
That's true.
Buffalo had any number of things that could have gone their way. I mean, it took, a 59-yard field goal on a rainy, windy day to go in to get the thing to overtime. And then if you think about a couple other games, remember the one game against Washington, Reed Blankenship's forearm kept a pass from being completed. Yeah. That if it wasn't for that forearm, Washington's in field goal range, and the Eagles could have lost that game. So the Eagles could have lost a handful of times, but they fought. They got a little lucky. They took advantage of the breaks. They get to 10-1. Then they run into two buzzsaws, San Francisco and Dallas. And listen, there's no shame in losing to those teams. Those are the two best teams, or two of the best teams in the NFC. And so that gets the Eagles to 10-3. And then I think at that point, the Eagles thought, okay, the schedule lightens up and we'll be able to handle it. And they assumed they would win down the stretch. And they did. They blew the game against Seattle. They blew the game against Arizona. And then Sunday was just a meltdown. And so the team, I think, thought, once we get through that gauntlet of the schedule, we can let up a little bit. That just the opposite. It should have been the time to put the hammer down and play your best football to build momentum going into the playoffs. Instead, the team relaxed a little bit, had some things go against them where they were getting lucky in that winning streak. They got unlucky in the losing streak. And now, again, we've seen this team lose 5 out of 6, and just it's a head scratcher. This is one of the worst ways to finish out a season we've seen.
Yeah, and I'm glad you put that up there, because isn't that at the end when you said the luck kind of churns, and coaches hate that term luck, but let's be honest, it's real.
Absolutely.
And there's so many one-score games, and the Eagles were winning them early and then losing them late. Think about Seattle, Arizona specifically. Those are one-score games. You make one stop defensively, you win those games. You got 13 wins. Everybody's happier. Maybe not great. I think it changes. San Francisco still has the number 1 seed because they're probably playing harder and to keep it. But you probably have the number 2 seed and everybody's happy and going into the playoffs and saying, well, the Eagles got a real shot, at least to get back to the NFC Championship game. Even go back to the Jets, 10-1.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts, the worst play of the season for him. If they just punt the football, they probably win that game.
Think about the in the Seattle game, Seattle's backed up inside the 10-yard line. Locke throws a pass over the middle. It's right by Nick Morrow, right by him. He couldn't get his hands to it. So it wasn't like he didn't, it wasn't like his mistake.
Yeah.
But that ball is just a little different. He's picking that pass off the 15-yard line. The Eagles are probably going to add points right there, and they probably win that game by double digits. And all of a sudden you say, hey, the defense showed us they could close out a game. All of a sudden they've maybe got some confidence in who knows how the next few games go. Instead, that ball falls harmlessly to the ground, and it turns into the James Bradbury pick on James Bradbury festival, and Seattle marches down and scores the winning touchdown.
Man.
And the Eagles their mojo's gone. When they had that 20-3 lead on the Giants, you thought, okay, they flipped the switch, and the next thing you know, it's 20-18. And I know as I'm watching it, I'm sitting there going, here we go. It's meltdown time. And they got lucky that they held on for that game. And in the Cardinal game, when they were up 21-6, I said, okay, they learned their lesson for last week. And then all of a sudden it's 21-13. And you said, oh boy, here we go. And sure enough, the team just completely folded in the second half of that game, and they didn't bother showing up on Sunday.
So all that being said, would you not say the Eagles, to quote the famous Bill Parcells line, you are what your record says you are? There were several games that they lost that they could have won. But there were also several games that they won that they could have lost. When you put it all in the wash, doesn't it come out to 11-6, exactly where they are?
So everybody, in regard to just about everything in the world, has recency bias, right? Whatever just happened to you is the way you think of something.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you go back to 1991, the Eagles finished 7-1 behind Gang Green playing awesome defense, and everybody's fired up by that team. Hey, if they had just made the playoffs, they would have been so tough. They might have won the Super Bowl. Well, they didn't make the playoffs. So they finished the season hot, but they started the season cold. In the end, you had a 10-6 team that was just missed the playoffs. This year, you had a team that started red hot and finished cold, but they finished with an 11-6 record, not that different than 10-6 the 91 team was. So the overall season was a success, right? It's just the end was a disaster, and you blew the opportunity you had to be the number 1 seed, the number 2 seed, win the division. You blew those opportunities. So that adds on to the frustration as compared to if they had gone, 2-1, 2-2, 3-2, 3-3, and then so on and so forth. They've been more back and forth. You could have lived with it because it wouldn't have built your expectations. But because of recency bias, what we saw at the end was a team that just folded, and we all sit there and say, well, I don't trust this team at all. We're not treating them like an 11-6 team. We're treating them like a 6-11 team.
Yeah. And you're right about the recency bias, Tommy, but that's part of it because human nature is human nature, and forget about the outside world. It's got to be the inside world. Can the Eagles recover from that because let's face it, they should beat Tampa Bay. Even in Tampa Bay, they have better players. They
Absolutely.
should win the game, even on the road. But I think we could all envision them losing the game after what they've just been through. Can they turn it around? Dallas Goedert essentially said, you know what? We were just, coasting to the finish line. Can they turn the light switch on? I think they can offensively. I'm not sure they can do it defensively.
They absolutely can do it. There's no question. There's enough talent. This team can win Monday night. Oh, God forbid. And then they can, the next week you'd be probably playing at San Francisco, and that's a whole other, challenge. But again, it's possible. Absolutely. No question about it. Now, part of the problem is we keep talking about talent in the roster, and it feels like this is a sports car that the mechanic can't figure out why it's not running correctly. And it's most definitely not running correctly. And so we haven't seen them play like a playoff team in a while now. Even when they were, beating Kansas City in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Those were still flawed performances, right? They got down at halftime. I think, was it down 17-6 to Kansas City? And then in Buffalo had complete control of that game for a while. So it took big comebacks and like I say, lucky breaks to win those games. So the last time this team looked genuinely good for 60 minutes, I don't know. That's a hard question. Tampa Bay, maybe in week 3, I think it was, when they won 25.
Yeah, I think that was their best game, ironically, of the year. Their most complete game. Most complete game.
They gave up 174 yards on defense. They gained 472 yards on offense, and the game was only 25-11 because the Eagles were 1 for 5 in the red zone. If they score a couple of touchdowns, then all of a sudden that's a blowout. And we sit there, but at the time that was the talking point on the team is the Eagles are good, but they can't score in the red zone, and that's keeping the opponents in the game. They figured out the red zone stuff, and then everything else started to go wrong. And that's what the season has felt like. It's felt like a really bizarre game of whack-a-mole where the coaches solve one problem and something else pops up. The Eagles had the best run defense in the league for the first 2 months, and now all of a sudden James Conner looks like freaking Earl Campbell. It's just a strange season. And there's part of me that is really excited to see what they do. And there's another part of me that's just ready for this to be over so we can go ahead and start focusing on something else, because this season, I can't imagine what the coaches think. You sit there and you watch the tape and you're like, how are these problems happening? Because there's some smart veterans on this team, and they just do some things that just blow your mind.
Yeah.
It's really hard to figure out.
Couple things. I went down the O.J. Simpson, James Conner road last week.
I like Thomas because he was physical. I like Earl Campbell because he was more physical.
And he was dragging Eagles tacklers with him. And then a couple times he didn't even have to drag them. They just said, you go on your own.
Yeah. There's Earl Campbell is on an island to himself. There's never been as physical a back as he is.
Yeah, I agree with that. But
here, I've been throwing this theory out, and I get mixed reviews. No one is going, damn, Joe, you're exactly right. So I don't know how right I am or aren't. If you believe the Eagles' offensive coordinator and their play caller has a grasp of what's going on with the Birds right now, which some people don't. 2 weeks in a row, when asked about their play calling and why they did what they did when they did it, the first one being in the throes of right after the Eagles fan base chanting when the Eagles had the ball, run the ball, just run the ball, and the fallout thereafter of Eagle players complaining about it. 2 weeks in a row, he actually defended the Eagles offense by saying, when we go to the line of scrimmage, it hasn't been decided yet whether it's a run or a pass. That if it's an RPO, they can go either way. That if Jalen wants to check out of the play and go either way, we've got options off all our plays. So if you want to try and balance run to pass, well, that's kind of something that's done on the fly in the middle of the game, which I read into it that Jalen's running the offense, that they may send him plays, whisper in his ear about something, but then Jalen decides in the moment exactly what the hell they should do with the football. I think that's a lot. I know he was the runner-up for MVP in the NFL last year, and it got him a $250 million contract, but he's still a relatively young quarterback in the National Football League. Did the Eagles put too much on Jalen Hurts' plate before this year started?
No, I wouldn't agree with that. In the RPOs, he's completely right on a lot of those plays. And it's not just the Eagles. I've got friends who cheer for different teams, and I swear 32 different fan bases think their team doesn't run enough. They want to run the ball. They want to see the I formation. They want 47 carries a game up the middle. And they don't understand. It is. It really is. Coaches want favorable circumstances. And it's amazing.
It's a math equation. I say it all the time. Yeah.
It's amazing this didn't get to the NFL until now. But coaches, have Jalen go to the line of scrimmage and look, and if he sees an 8-man front, hey, we don't want to run into an 8-man front. So if you see that, there are certain circumstances, we want you to throw the football. That's the run pass option. Read the defense, see where they're aligned, and try to find the weakness, and let's attack the weakness. So it's like trying to always be right. And I do think there is a weakness to that now. If you think about the greatest teams that we've seen play football, they didn't always try to outsmart the opponent. Sometimes, we knew the Dallas Cowboys were going to hand the ball to Emmitt Smith, and it was going behind Larry Allen.
Yep.
And you stopped it. Every now and then, we still celebrated the fact that we stopped it 28 years ago in 1995. That's like a holy event in Philadelphia, the 4th and 1 stop. Well, guess what?
Actually felt the ground shake beneath me. That's the 2 times at the vet in my life. Last out NLCS with Mitch Williams on the mound, and when Emmett got stopped twice at 4th. The only time I actually felt the vet shake below my feet.
I was at a sports bar watching it with a mixture of Eagles fans, Cowboys fans, and other people from other games who all focused on that. And you would have thought that the world just came to an end because everybody went nuts. People that just were there to hate Dallas loved it. Everybody became an Eagles fan for 5 minutes. But what we don't talk about is the other 150 times they run behind Larry Allen against the Eagles and they averaged 5 yards a carry, right? We don't talk about that. And so when you have great players, sometimes I think coaches in today's game worry too much about outsmarting the opponent and not what do we do well and how do I get the ball to my best players and give them a chance to make a play. And so there's a balance. There's a healthy balance you have to have between let's be in the right play and let's just give our guys a chance and let's do what we do. Because as you're pointing out, Jody, and there's a little bit of truth in this, in the fact, do you want your players thinking a lot, or sometimes you want your players just playing? And so if Jalen's going up there and he's reading the defense, and then he's got to think about, somebody going in motion. Do I need to adjust this? This was the snaps on 2. There are play clocks at 6. Do I? And then once he gets the handoff, he's got to read the defensive end and decide: am I going to hand it to Swift? Am I going to keep it and run it myself? So there is a lot of thought going on, but that's central to a lot of the NFL, a lot of football in general these days. So I don't think it's too much for him. I think it's just, again, that's the way the game is shifted, and the Eagles are definitely at the forefront of the RPO world.
Yeah, Chip Kelly for all his for all the criticisms of Chip Kelly, and I always say he didn't have a filter. That was Chip's problem. But he brought so much to the NFL. It was ahead of the curve, so to speak. I say it all the time, Tommy. Innovation trickles up in football. Most industries, it trickles down, trickles up in football. Really, high school to college, and the high school coaches are the ones coming up with all this funky stuff. Then it goes to college. Then it finally hits the pros. But yeah, I mean, it's been here since Chip. Doug did it, and they do it now. And you have an option. And you would hear Carson Wentz. Watch old Carson. You would hear Carson all the time killing the play.
Right.
He's killing from run to pass or vice versa. It's not difficult to do. It's not like old school. You bring up the Dallas Cowboys. I'll go way back to Roger Staubach. Guys like that would run the game from the line of scrimmage. That doesn't happen. It's a math equation. All right. As you mentioned, you got an extra guy in the box. Let's throw it. You got they're in coverage. Let's run it. Blah, blah, blah. Eagles have the RPRs, run pass run option. They'd like to call it. He kills plays. Now, when you audible, and like in the Seattle game, and you take a shot and you make a mistake, then it's time to blame the quarterback. Now, I know people don't want to blame the quarterback, but another issue I have because it's become the narrative, is the blitz beater. I'll be the first to tell you the Eagles have no answers for the blitz. However, if you watch Nick Sirianni and Frank Reich's offense in Indianapolis with Phillip Rivers, they magically had blitz beaters. If you don't have a quarterback who is going to throw the ball quickly, you're not going to put that in your offense. It's not like Nick Sirianni doesn't know, hey, they're coming from here. Let's throw behind his ear. Let's throw it. They did it all the time in Indianapolis with Phillip Rivers. If Jalen Hurts isn't going to do that, why are we blaming the coaching staff?
Well, so let's think about the first Giants game. There was a sequence, and I feel like it was late in the first half. The Giants were blitzing, and Kenny Gainwell caught passes on 2 out of 3 plays, or maybe back-to-back plays. He caught passes in the left flat and gained 10, 12 yards on each play. And so at first, when the Giants were blitzing, the Eagles were throwing a football downfield, incompletions, wasn't working. Those two plays, all of a sudden, they have Gainwell in the flat. They get the ball to him, and guess what? There's a giant void because that's where the blitzer came from. Jalen gets the ball out there. Gainwell gets out of bounds late in the half, and they went and scored some points. And you saw, okay, they do have the ability to throw the ball to checkdowns, but Sirianni and Hurts both are ultra aggressive and want chunk plays. And they're like the home run hitter who just keeps swinging harder to hit a home run. And it's like, forget the home run, just swing and make contact and see what happens. And they keep trying to attack downfield because they want their big plays against the blitz. And it's just not working this year. You know, the results are there. So they've got to adjust that. And it'll be interesting to see what they do in Tampa. I do agree that you're right. When Mariota came in the game, all of a sudden they had some plays that worked against the blitz, right?
Except the first one.
Yeah, right.
Steps in and throws an immediate interception. That wasn't working.
Well, that was that was a bad play. But once he got in and settled down and was throwing passes kind of in a rhythm and got his feet under him, all of a sudden you saw quick throws to Covey. Quez Watkins actually looked like a legitimate NFL receiver. The ball was coming out quickly, and there was a kind of a rhythm to the offense. I agree. It's in the playbook. The stuff's in there. It's just that Sirianni and Hurts both want their big plays, and they keep forcing the issue. And that's where I wish I wish Jeff Lurie would sit down and say, quit going deep. Listen, it worked awesome last year. It helped get us to the Super Bowl, but it's not working right now. So don't force the issue. Get chunk plays by yards after the catch. Let's try a screen pass. Let's do something else. But throwing the ball downfield is just not working this year. And the fact that they won't adjust from that is incredibly frustrating.
Whenever I see the blitz, Tommy, coming, and you see it a lot from Wink Martindale, and I see Jalen flush, I'm like, all right, play's over.
Yeah.
I mean, you either got to get rid of the football quickly, process it, or you got to step up and manipulate the pocket if you want that downfield throw. But the minute you flush, you might as well flush the play because that's essentially where it's going.
Yeah, and I would tell him the thing that I think John Gruden's the coach I heard say this first. You never go broke taking a profit. And in other words, get 3 yards on a play. You don't have to get 30 yards every play. Just get 3. Move the chains. And so Jalen, if you would just become comfortable on throwing a quick ball to a tight end, a running back, receivers underneath, just get those 3 yards. 2nd and 7 is better than 2nd and 10. It's a heck of a lot better than 2nd and 15 or 2nd and 16.
True.
Just throw the quick passes when you need to, and that's okay. The big plays will come. Don't force them. And this year, the coaches are forcing them, and Jalen's forcing them. And as we've seen, there's been countless interceptions down the field. The Quez Watkins a couple of weeks ago, there was an interception, a deep interception against Tampa in the first game there. There was a deep interception against Minnesota in that game. We've seen him all year. He's forcing them all into coverage. And last year, where AJ would make these amazing plays, you have a touchdown, like he threw that deep ball in the Super Bowl into double coverage, shouldn't have thrown it, was a touchdown. This year, when he throws that, it's being picked off. So just because it worked last year doesn't mean that's a good plan.
But let me say this about one blitz beater they have. And John and I have had many discussions on this. The bubble screen. John hates it with a passion. I think it can be an effective play if you've got the right players to run it. You got the right scheme to do it. I think it'd be a tremendously effective play. It makes sense the Eagles would want to run it because, you want to get the ball out of the quarterback's hand as soon as possible. You can't pick up the blitz. You're in a package that doesn't provide enough protection. Just get it the hell out. But don't you have to judge the result more than anything else? There's the philosophy of it. There's the reasoning behind it. But then the play is run, and then you get to look at the film and go, we're just not capable of doing this. We're bad at this, be it the receivers don't block or the linemen don't get out quickly enough or Jalen's not putting it right on the guy's hands when he should be able to because there's no defense because you're getting out that fast. At some point, don't you just have to go, all right, we can't do this. We've got to come up with a different call, a different play as a blitz beater because every time we throw the bubble screen, it goes nowhere fast. Is that not the fault of the coaching staff, or is it the fault on Jalen for continuing to throw the ball and just don't do it anymore? Jalen, it doesn't work.
Well, that's a play where Jalen doesn't have a choice a lot of times. That's a design play. We saw that at the end of the Cardinals game.
That's what I'm referring to. Yes.
Yeah, that was a called play. Get the ball to Gainwell, let him run, and yeah. So the play, it's a good play when it's executed well. The Eagles don't execute it well on a consistent basis. They've had a few. They had one where they ran it on 3rd and 15, and Devontae got a first down on it. He got like 18 or 20 yards.
Yeah,
but that was the one, huh?
Yeah, right, exactly. The majority of those plays are stopped right at the line or for a minimal gain, and the guys don't block it well. And I don't feel like it's a great play for either Devontae or AJ. AJ has tremendous run after the catch ability, but usually you're throwing the football and he's catching it on the move, and he can accelerate. When you throw the screen, you're starting and stopping, and he's not the quickest guy. He's a a big dude. That's a play that maybe you throw to Britton Covey, because that's the kind of thing that Covey could do.
Tommy, I thought that's where they would get the ball to DeAndre Swift in the passing game. I thought, the running back, because that's the guy, the running back should make that first guy miss. That's a lot of times when you have to do.
That's exactly right. So you're catching the ball with your feet already planted on the ground. You're not on the move. You've got to read the defender. You got to read the block. And you got to say, do I go in? Do I go out? Do I run full speed? Do I go 2/3 speed and try to read things? You got to have either a running back or a punt returner's kind of mentality. And neither Devontae or AJ is just very good at it. Yeah. And then neither one of them blocks consistently well in that play. They have plays where they look terrific with blocking, and they have other plays where they just are sloppy. Yeah. And throwing the ball to Gainwell, they tried it against Arizona, and Arizona, again, it wasn't blocked well, and it just wasn't executed well. And Arizona probably had an idea that was coming, so that they attacked it well on defense. So yeah, it's a play. If the Eagles want to keep that in their playbook, I'd say study it and figure out a way to execute it better. If not, get it out of the playbook. The only benefit to it is when the Eagles do the pump fake on it and have the blocker then go out onto the route. And we did see that's led to 1 touchdown this year and 3 or 4 touchdowns last year, where the defensive backs come up and then the guy who's pretending to block then runs downfield is wide open for a touchdown. So it's a nice way to get a big play. But the problem is you've got to run that play 50 times to set up that one fake that works. Yeah, and those 50 plays, if they're gaining it 100 yards, that's not good. You need more than 2 yards on that pass play.
Zach Pascal's not coming back through that door. He's not coming back to be able to do that.
He's not.
Is unfortunate.
Well, we kind of buried the lead. We've been talking the offense. I get it, Tommy, because offense is more exciting. That's where the stars are on this particular team. They're underachieving. But boy, this defense, man. I mean, it is people say it could get worse from Jonathan Gannon. Well, it got a hell of a lot worse.
Yeah.
It couldn't get worse from Sean Desai. Well, it got a hell of a lot worse. And they keep they're Benjamin buttoning things with communication. I described it. They're aging backwards. You're supposed to get better as the season goes on with communication. They're getting worse and worse and worse and worse. I've never seen anything like it. I really haven't.
It's discouraging.
Even bad defenses get incrementally better.
Right.
And they keep going backwards.
I don't have answers for you on the defense. I really don't. I just don't know what to say. I mean, not having Darius Slay has hurt him. There's no question. Not having Zach Cunningham for a couple of weeks hurt him. It feels like you guys before I came on were talking about how much blame does Howie deserve. And I think what I would tell you about Howie as he constructed this roster last year, where he took chances on fringe players, like when he traded for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, they got him for a low pick. And the thought was that's a good trade for the Eagles because you're adding a talented player. He had a career year, not just a good year, he had a career year. This year they said, okay, well, let's try to bring in some safeties that we think could be a good stopgap player. Terrell Edmonds was terrible, just terrible. Justin Evans couldn't stay healthy. Kevin Byard has been mediocre since they traded for him. The moves just haven't worked. And I will tell you this is kind of awkward. The other day I was watching the end of the Titans game against Jacksonville. And I don't know if you guys saw it. Jacksonville at 4th down. They were on the verge of scoring territory. He didn't complete a pass. Trevor Lawrence drops back, tries to hit his tight end in the flat. Really good coverage. The ball is incomplete. Terrell Edmonds was in coverage.
And by the way, Derek Barnett in Houston.
I was going to say, exactly. Yeah. The other day I was looking at something and I went and looked at Houston Texans stats, and this is after he only been there for 2 games or 3 games. He had like 5 tackles for loss.
Yeah.
And I say, excuse me?
Yeah.
Did they design plays where the 10 blockers all went in another direction and he was allowed to just run after the ball by himself? Listen, it's not a good look. There's no question about it. The coaches this year have not been able to get these guys to play. And I do think part of it is that some of these players are thinking as individuals, and defense is all about functioning as a team, right? You have to do your job on defense, because if you don't do your job, protect your gap, cover your gap, protect your zone, then all of a sudden the defense fails. And there was a play against Arizona where Hassan Reddick is on the edge and he sees Kyler Murray move to the opposite side of the field, just starts to. Well, then Hassan takes a step inside, and then Kyler switches and runs outside right where Reddick would have been. But because Reddick's moved 2 steps inside, all of a sudden Murray's able to get down. He got a first down and down to about the 5-yard line, set up a touchdown. If Hassan Reddick just stays where he's supposed to, that Murray's not getting him around him, and they're going to stop him. Now, maybe he gains a couple yards, but he gained the first down. Yeah. Little things like that, where just quit trying to be an individual, quit trying to play hero ball. You watch linebackers that get into the wrong gap. You watch players just make boneheaded decisions, and part of that's got to be coaching. Part of it's on the players. Part of it's just not talented enough. It's really amazing that somehow, we talk about, what is it? The sum is greater than the whole of the parts, or whatever the old saying is. It feels like that's the opposite here. They bring out the worst in each other, and I don't know if it's the locker room, it's personalities, if it's coaching, the scheme. Did somebody put a curse on the defensive players? Right at this point, I'd be open to anything. Does anybody know an exorcist? The power of Christ compels you. Yeah. Let's have him do that to Matt Patricia and see what happens. I don't know, man.
Along those lines, I want to ask you about 2 specific guys, and I think it plays into what both of you guys were just saying. The 2 big defensive dogs in the middle of the Eagles line, who both got off to very good starts this year. Shoot, we were making Jalen Carter the defensive player of the year after 6 games as a rookie. He's disappeared. Jordan Davis has gone backwards. I get it that the whole explanation is, well, they didn't play at Georgia. They were so deep on the defensive line. These guys didn't get their snaps and they're not used to it. They're babies. They shouldn't be running out of gas at this stage of the season. I'm sorry. I'm not buying that. Oh, they're overusing them. That's their job. They're supposed to be able to play at age 21 and 22, however old they are. They're not Fletcher Cox, who's logged a decade. They're not Brandon Graham, who's logged a decade plus. If they're running out of gas, I can kind of get it. I know what the shelf life of a football player is in the National Football League and when you start to see a drop-off because of age. These guys are supposed to be ascending, not flattening out and or going backwards. How much of an indictment is that on the coaching staff? Sorry, Mr. Rocker, I'm looking at you. But the first defensive coordinator, the second defensive coordinator, these guys have gotten precipitously worse over the course of the year. Who's to blame, Tommy Lawler?
Jody McDonald. That's who I would blame, of course.
We're pointing it out? All right, I'll take that hit.
There's no question. I went back and reread my notes from the first Tampa game, and Jordan Davis was a key to the run defense. I think Tampa ran for 40 yards in that game. Jordan Davis clogged the middle, and then Jalen Carter was fantastic in that game, really played at a high level. And I thought, man, I haven't written those words for either one of them in a long time. And you're right. It does feel like that those guys have worn down, and that's not a good look. Now, I will say that for defensive linemen, especially interior defensive linemen, that's a man's position, and those are still kids growing into men. And that you go look at Fletcher Cox, his first couple of years, he was still figuring things out. Sometimes it takes a few years for a defensive tackle to really understand what it takes to be good week in and week out for a full season. And we're kind of seeing that. Maybe the coaches have not done some things well there. I don't know. And part of it may be conditioning, but whatever it is, you're absolutely right to point out those guys have not been the same players recently. In this defense, Howie Roseman constructed the roster so that the defensive line had to be the best unit on the defense. They had to really control games. That hasn't happened. All of a sudden, the back seven, which we knew wasn't great going into the season, we just didn't count on the front four or the front five being as mediocre as they are. And all of a sudden, that's made the back seven look awful. And it's a little bit of a chicken or the egg thing there. But yeah, right now they're not helping each other, and it's been painful to watch.
Yeah, I still can't get to the point where, and I think the front, I would describe the front, Tommy, as disappointing, because they have to dominate, and they have to dominate consistently to make up for the back end. But I can't put those two groups on an even keel. I mean,
no.
When Gannon used to say rush and cover, cover and rush, well, the front, and I get why people are disappointed with them, but I looked at the PFF numbers because I haven't looked at them in a while. The front's still pretty damn good consistently. That back seven is a flipping disaster. I mean, it is a disaster. And they haven't dominated to the point Jody and I would bring up, in the preseason, Bucky Brooks from NFL Media would say, the Eagles defensive front is the best position group in the entire NFL. The entire NFL of any position group. And we both agreed with him at the time. On paper, it looks so good and so deep. Hasn't lived up to that billing, which I agree with. But it's still pretty good overall. That back seven is just...
John and I have argued this before, Tommy, and here's the point that I hang my hat on. They're supposed to be that dominant. If you're going to, now this is on Howie Roseman, if you're going to invest as much as the Eagles did, Brandon Graham makes big money. Fletcher Cox makes big money. Hassan Reddick makes big money. Josh Sweat makes big money. They put out 2 first-round draft picks. All right, it's the dollars are going to come, but that's big equity in that position. What have they put in the back seven? Slay makes money. Bradbury makes money. The other 5 guys, 6 guys, 7 guys make $1.85. So, yeah, the defensive line is supposed to dominate. And when they don't, which do you get more surprised by? The back seven, which you put together with the tape and glue, or the guys you're paying through the nose for up front. Yeah, it's supposed to be the defensive line dominate. I don't care what their PFF ratings are. They're not as good as they should be for the amount of money, as the kind of investment you made in them.
But here's the problem, Jody. You can neutralize that pass rush if you throw the football quickly. And again, you could line up Reggie White, Hugh Douglas, Clyde Simmons, Jerome Brown, whoever you want up front, line up, choose your favorite 4 guys. And if that ball is out in 2.1 seconds, those 4 guys are staring at each other and turning around and watching what's going on behind them because the ball's out so quickly.
Hopefully they're chasing because they need to chase.
If that's the case, did Howie Roseman make a mistake by overpaying Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick? If they can be neutralized by just get it out of your hands in 2.1 seconds, well, then why the hell are you paying them all that money if they're not going to be able to do their job?
So here's the thing that I don't understand, and every coach says this, and we know that and listen, it's a fact. The rush and the coverage have to work in sync. They go together. If you have a bad pass rush, then and you have great coverage, well, that coverage can't last for 5 seconds. There's something's going to happen. If you have a great pass rush with terrible coverage, yet again, if they're flying off the ball, well, if the ball's out too quickly and it's easy to throw, that's not going to work. So they have to work together. And we've seen numerous times where it's 3rd and 5 and Eagles corners are 7-8 yards off the ball, and you see Kyler Murray or Tyrod Taylor dropping back and throwing a ball to a slot receiver, and he catches the ball right at the sticks, and he's tackled. He only give up 6 yards on the play, but he only needed 5.
Right.
And you see Hassan Reddick just barely, he was bearing down on the quarterback, but the ball's out. And that has to frustrate the defensive line at a certain point. I don't understand why on these third and short and mediums, they're not playing more press coverage and giving the defensive line a chance to get there. But then I will say there are any number of plays we've seen a 3rd and long. I think there was a 3rd and 14 the other day, and the quarterback had plenty of time and threw a deep ball down the field and got the first down. So when there are chances to make plays, the defensive line isn't making them. It's not a good defense, man. It is not a good defense.
It is not. That we can agree on.
I just don't know if this group is. I think they can play well enough to beat Tampa, because Tampa just scored 22 points over the last 2 weeks combined.
Yeah.
So Tampa has their issues, but somebody's going to need some real crazy mojo to have this group do anything beyond that.
At Lawler NFL, we love it when Tommy Lawler stops by. Make sure you read him at Eagles Blitz, IGGLES Blitz.com. Does a tremendous job, tremendous knowledge going back years and years and years and years. So I'll end it there with you, Tommy.
Appreciate that.
This coaching staff is taking it from all sides. Where are you with the coaching staff and their impact on this? Obviously they got a hand in it, but when we hear Nick Sirianni say we got to do a better job, we think about Andy Reid. That's obviously lip service.
Sure.
I'm a personnel guy. I say it all the time. Good times, bad times, it's the players. How culpable are the Eagles coaches for this collapse?
They have some hand in it for sure, right? I agree with you that a lot of it is on the players. I mean, Jalen's turnovers have cost the Eagles games this year. If he just doesn't turn the ball over, they've got a couple of additional wins probably.
Yeah.
AJ Brown had a key fumble against the Giants on Sunday, and then one in the loss to Dallas. We've just seen turnovers and mistakes, whether it's a drop pass, a missed block. DeAndre Swift on that 1st and 10 run, he's got to know it's the end of the game. Just run the ball up the middle, and if you get 1 yard, it's 2nd and 9. Instead, he decides to bounce it left to try to go for a big play. There's a holding call at 1st and 20. You back up, you're at the border of field goal range. That changes the play calling completely. If it's 2nd and 9, they can throw the ball, they can run it. If you only get 1 more yard, it's 3rd and 8, but you're still solid to field goal range. You got a whole different set of options. The players are making some bad decisions. They're making mistakes. They're not making big plays. On defense, I really don't understand what happened there. So the defense had a month where they held like 4 straight teams under, I feel like 250 yards, but at least 300 yards and had good performances. They played well against the Dolphins. They did some good things, and then something happened, and I don't know if it's injuries or what have you. And that's where Nick Sirianni felt the need to make the move to Patricia, and things have not been the same since. Now, injuries have piled onto that, right? And so it's like he made a bad decision to move away from Desai, and then injuries and opponents have made that decision look even worse. And so that whole side of the football looks really flawed. So the big thing that I'll say is coaches need to have answers, and the coaches have not found a way. I think we would all agree. Forget the defense is bad. We all agree on that. But I think we'd all say that the defense is not playing to their talent, right? Even with the flawed construction, the issues they've got, they still should be better than what we're seeing. They should not be giving up 450 yards to the Arizona Cardinals, right? I think we would all agree on that.
Yeah.
So I think the coaches are culpable for the fact they haven't been able to get better play. The offense has had its issues, but it still finished top 10 in points and yards.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the offensive coaching can be better, but the execution is part of that. Defensive execution is not good either. Howie's the talent that he got hasn't worked out, but the coaching has not been able to solve any of the problems. And that's been frustrating. So everybody's got a hand in this mess. Nobody's innocent. Nobody except for us three.
Speaking of execution, if they give up 450 yards to the Bucks this week, they'll be an execution.
Yeah,
it's
John McKay territory. I'm all for it. Yeah,
entire coaching staff, just line them up. Tommy, we love having you on. Whenever you jump in, we'll get you back up in a couple of weeks, hopefully to talk about an upcoming Eagle game. If not, the beginning of the off season, we're definitely going to have you back on soon, brother. Thanks for coming on today.
Thanks, fellas. Fun to talk to you.
Thanks,
Tommy Lawler, Eagles, IGGLES, EaglesBlitz.com. Very good Eagle website. All right, McDonald and McMullen coming back. We still got plenty to get in here in our second hour, including talking to one Chris Franklin. He's going to join us coming up about 15 minutes here on Birds 365.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their fantasy pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
EAGLES, Eagles.
All right, Mac and Mac guys here with you on Birds 365. Chris Franklin, NJ.com, going to join us now in just over 10 minutes. We talked plenty about the Birds and what they got to do coming up against the Bucks, and we'll certainly do more of that with Chris Franklin when he jumps in. Do want to get this in, John, and I don't want to run out of time at the end of the show because it's something that I get into arguments with every single year, and I hope that's not the case this year, but I'm pretty damn sure it's going to be. The Eagles, as soon as they finished their last game, we knew who they'd be playing not only this upcoming Monday night, but all of next year. The schedule is already set. That's done by I guess it's a formula that they use, and it's rotating. And there's people think that the NFL stacks the schedule. Yeah, we got to wait till April to find out when the games are. games on short weeks, long travel, everything. There's some debate too. But the actual strength of the schedule itself on paper is known as soon as the season ends. And the Eagles now have a second place schedule. No, they blew the division. No, it's now 19 years. The same team hasn't won. But the Cowboys got to play a first place schedule, and the Eagles got to play a second place schedule. So you got to keep that in mind, Eagle fans, if you think you get screwed somehow with the schedule this year. By the way, you didn't.
They're already saying they got screwed. I haven't seen.
Oh no, I'm just anticipating that
okay.
case, because you get a percentage of fans who do that every year. The world is attacking it against Philadelphia. There are only 3 games on a 17-game schedule that is actually dictated by how you played the year before. I think people overemphasize the toughness and the ease of a schedule. Well, first thing first, you got to get out of your division. And no team has been able to do it 2 years running in 19 years. So it is something that's apparently very difficult to do. History tells us. There's only 3 games all next year that will be dictated by the fact that the Eagles played a second place schedule, but people would make it sound like and make you believe that, oh, it's all dictated. No, it's not. They play the NFC South 4 times, all 4 teams. So do the Cowboys, so do the Giants, so do the Commanders. They play the AFC North, all 4 teams. So do the Cowboys, so do the Commanders, so do the Giants. The only 3 games that they have next year that are dictated by the fact that they finish with a second place schedule, finishing in the NFC East are the Packers, the Rams, and the Jaguars.
Second, by the way. That's how it works.
Right. You play your division, another full division in the other conference, another full division in your own conference, and then 3 games are dictated by the fact that you finished second and those 3 other teams finished in second place. It used to be just the other 2 in your conference. Now, because they went to 17 games, there's one division in the other conference, not the one that you play the whole division, one of the other 3, and that's on a rotating basis. So this year they got the Jaguars. On a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being, oh my God, they got so lucky, 10 being, oh my God, they're going to be so tortured because of it. How would you rank those 3 opponents? The others are locked in stone. There's nothing you can do about it. You don't find out who those other teams you're playing because you finished with a second place schedule. How do you think Rams, Packers, and Jaguars? And I know I'm asking you to evaluate all the way into next September.
Well,
there's a whole bunch of shit that's going to go down between now and then.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm asking you to do so.
I think it's a tougher second place schedule than normal because I think Jacksonville struggled down the stretch, but I'm still a big Trevor Lawrence guy. The Packers, I've been a Jordan Love guy for. I thought he was going to turn into a pretty good quarterback, and I think he's going to keep getting better. And then the Rams, obviously, with Sean McVay. We'll see where Matthew Stafford is. But I will say, and you're right, people overrate the schedule. It used to be a little bit more important than it is now when it's structured. But if you think about it, what are the Cowboys? The Cowboys are 12-5. The Eagles are 11-6. Those 3 different opponents. And when you play that first place schedule, in theory, if teams are good, but then, from that standpoint, you see guys go from worst to first every year in this league. And there's teams that weren't in the playoffs. I think 4 teams not in the playoffs is this crazy consecutive year streak. So everything changes so quickly. It's so overrated, strength of schedule. But it is more difficult when you get a first place schedule. It is. And the Eagles saw it this year, by the way.
You mentioned the Cowboys, and that's the direct correlation that everybody's going to come up with. You said you thought the Eagles playing against those second place team a little harder than usual. You might be right. I'm a little bit more down on Trevor Lawrence than you are. I'm not calling him a bust, but he appled up. He kind of choked. And I'm not ready to anoint Love to the level that
I'm a big Jordan Love guy, man. I think he's going to be really good. I do.
I'm not ready to go there yet. But the teams that the Cowboys will be playing that the Eagles won't are the 49ers, the Lions, and the Texans. That's pretty significant. If you think the Eagles' second place schedule is difficult, how about the Cowboys' first place schedule?
Well, that's why I said there's no
49ers,
doubt.
the Lions, and the Texans.
All you have to do is look at the Eagles this year, and why is look at all the first place teams, and it was a more difficult schedule. Dallas is up again. That's the reason 19 straight years. Yeah, they got to play now. Who knows? Maybe Ben Johnson leaves Detroit and maybe they fall apart, but they look pretty good. The 49ers look pretty good. And what was the other team?
Texans.
CJ Stroud. He's only
good.
He's only going to keep getting better, not worse. So yeah.
Did I give you the stat? I know I gave it out on CBS. I think I gave it out on WIP. I might have given out here yesterday. I saw this over the weekend for CJ Stroud. When he finished up the season, he had over 4,100 passing yards, which for a rookie is just outrageously good. And his interception percentage ratio, which means how many passes get picked for every pass you attempt, was less than 1%.
Yeah.
For every 100 passes he threw less than one interception. In the history of the National Football League, this is not just rookies. This is not just the last 10 years. This is the history of the National Football League. One other quarterback has had a year in which he's thrown for 4,100 yards and had an interception ratio of less than 1%.
And remember, by the way, as we go, we're going to have plenty of time to talk about the draft, but CJ Stroud posts the worst S2 cognitive test score of any quarterback.
Don't get me going on C2. We'll lose the last 40 minutes of the show. But McMullen, you should know who's the only quarterback in the history of the National Football League before CJ Stroud who threw for 4,100 yards and less than one interception per 100 passes.
I have no idea.
He's one of your guys.
Stafford? No, it wouldn't be Stafford. Cousins?
Didn't play much this year.
Don't know.
As in, got hurt on the fourth play of the game.
Oh, Aaron. Oh, well, yeah, Aaron. Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron
Rodgers.
Aaron doesn't throw interceptions.
No, Aaron
never does.
I always say, Aaron's a kook. He's a lunatic.
Oh, yeah.
All that stuff. But he is, I always say, and you've heard me say it, no one has played the position at a higher level in the history of professional football. No one.
And for CJ Stroud to go to that level in his rookie year. Now, when Rodgers did it, wasn't his rookie year. It's right. It was
like
one of
fourth
his MVP
year.
years.
Yeah. Oh, he did it when he was MVP. I got it.
Oh, yeah.
I thought you were talking young. Yeah.
No. John, every quarterback in the history of the National Football League.
Yeah. I got
every year, every quarterback, it's only happened twice that a quarterback threw for 4,100 yards because some guys don't throw a pick all year, but they only throw 20 picks. So you're not getting 4,100 yards. They only throw 20 passes. So to accomplish 4,100 yards total passing and only throw less than one pick per 100 throws, it's only happened twice. Rodgers once, CJ Stroud in his rookie year once. That's just off the charts good. All right, he's McMullen. I'm McDonald. We're expecting our buddy Chris Franklin to jump in with us. Where will he be? Will he be from the home office? Will he be? He's not outside. It's cold out. I just got back in from taking out the dog. Winter's here, guys.
No, it's going to get hot now. The rain is coming in. It's going to get hotter. It's going up to like 50 something.
50?
Yeah. It's going to be a very rainy day around the Delaware Valley when it gets here.
You know what that means for me? I'm going to have to go put air in my tires. Do you have the same thing on your goofy tires? That if it gets down below a certain percentage, it goes up with the heat, down with the heat. That you get the blinking idiot light that tells you one of your tires is low.
Yeah, it's the Tom Brady effect of the footballs. Yeah, the cold affects the yes, it definitely does.
If it's going to be going up and down, then I'm going to have to go put air in my tire. We get hot air every time our next guest joins us. Is he listening yet? He's looking at like, what the hell? Chris Franklin from NJ.com is going to jump in with us. He's next here on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up, and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their fantasy pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
You got Mac and Mac, John McMullen and Jody McDonald, and we have Chris Franklin from NJ.com from his home office. Looking good there, Christopher. Appreciate you coming on with us today. Anything embarrassing above and beyond Eagle performance happened in the MetLife press box this week that you can rat out McMullen or Martin Frank or anybody else for it?
Yeah, rat out somebody else, Chris.
Yeah. Well, the fact that that we exist, we didn't have seats. We didn't have a seat.
We didn't have seats. Guys, talk about mailing it in. The New York Giants nailed it in. My God, they didn't even put up a seating chart. Well, they did have a seating chart, but they thought only the members of the Philadelphia Inquirer were showing up. They thought, I guess they thought 6 Philadelphia writers were showing up. Nobody else had a seat in the press box.
So it was Scramble Nation. Everybody get the best seat you
Sit
can.
wherever you want. Yeah,
really?
Sit wherever you want.
Yeah, I had to sit far. I sat far just to get a new angle, just to see something different. But I was like, wait a minute, like I'm like I scanned in, I'm allowed. Like, what's going on? Like, I thought I was gonna have to start doing it from like up top, like I did it for the for one of those college bowls down there in the Boca Raton Bowl. I had to sit outside in the rain one time because I was in an auxiliary press box. I'm like, we're gonna do this again. This is gonna be fun.
Do it from a comfy table in a cafeteria. They got nice TV screens there. You can watch.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah,
they're nice.
There were plenty of seats. That wasn't the issue because a bunch of people, obviously, week 18, they're mailing it in, but they didn't even put the names down on this. There were plenty of seats. That wasn't the issue. the point is they usually, you know, they usually direct you where to sit, and the Giants were like, you know, we're 5-11. Who cares? Who cares?
I just want to belong somewhere, guys. That's all. I just want to know where I'm going to be. I just want to belong somewhere. What the heck?
Well, you sound like you're more concerned than some of the Philadelphia Eagles are, and that's just flat out wrong because they've been putrid for a month and a half now here. Yeah. I get it. I don't want anybody coming out and going, we stink, and this guy's not doing that right, and the coach has no clue. I'm not looking for a crash and burn moment. But are you surprised by the fact that no one has had really anything creatively to say about what the Eagles need to do to get right and get this ship turned around? I'm not predicting a Super Bowl by any stretch of the imagination, but it'd be really nice to win a playoff game against Tampa this week. And I've gotten nothing from the coaches, from any of the players on this team as far as potential corrections that this team can make. Am I being overly judgmental?
No, I mean, I'm just waiting for somebody like I've been talking around. Maybe it happened. I don't know. I'm waiting for somebody like maybe throw a speaker or something around just to rattle it up to try to get a spark into this team, because it feels like for his last couple of weeks, it's just like, well, we're in the playoffs. Okay, we'll turn around. We'll just flip the switch and ready. And it's like this weird flat line right now. And I'm waiting for somebody to go like, okay, yeah. I mean, last week we saw practicing. We saw everybody's loose and just having fun, thinking that was going to be the thing. But we saw what happened when they came out that way. So I want to see that.
Well, I'll tell you what's going to happen, Chris. They're going to play the hits. And I saw BG, Mr. Optimism, obviously, and BG's great, phenomenal guy, but he was just on with Jody's other employer
last night. Yep.
And, he's talking about nobody believes in us, backs against the wall, underdog mentality. Lane Johnson's going to have the hat out. Jason Kelsey's going to have it. Nick's going to wear it. Nobody believes in these Philadelphia Eagles. They're going to go down that route again. They're going to play the hits. Is that enough? Nobody believes in us.
Maybe it works for the rookies because they haven't seen it yet. It's like, you know what? Yeah, this works. But yeah, it's you can say all that. You gotta find it. You gotta actually do it on the field. And can it work for some of the schematically for some of the stuff? Like, can you go? You know what? We're going to stop it so that way nobody's going to be us in between the numbers. Yeah, but you hope you get that in the defensive room or some of the coaches' room or something like that, because that's where I think a lot of it's going to matter. And I think for some of the players, I think it is they're going to ramp it up just a bit, but so are the Buccaneers because they've been in this situation too. So,
yeah, nobody believes in the Buccaneers either. By the way, nobody.
The
Eagles are favorite. They're favorite. So nobody believes in the Buccaneers. I just thought it was funny. I knew they were going to go down that route, but there's a bunch of there's four guys. BG, Dallas Goedert. Now after the game, Dallas Goedert said something kind of weird that basically, they were waiting for the playoffs and kind of mailed it in like the Giants press corps, not press corps, but PR staff. They mailed it in down the stretch. Any belief in what Dallas was saying, and they can just turn the switch on. And then you had Chad Ochocinco coming out of nowhere saying, "Oh, the Eagles are playing possum." What is going on? They're playing possum. What? Come on. This is the greatest possum act ever, by the way, if that's what they're doing.
Yeah, if they were winning these last, if they won, if they went 3-3 down the stretch and then the last two were losses because they're playing vanilla because they didn't want anybody to see what they're really doing, okay, maybe I can believe that. But they've been looking bad when they had a lot of stuff on the line. Right, so yeah. I can't see them playing I can't see them playing possum or anything else like that for. I mean, I love Club Shay and everything else, but I don't know if there was something else going on, like late 90s kind of delirious for that one. And when Dallas got to say that, I was like, I think he made me misworded or something, but yeah, you still had, even last week, when you still had the number 2 seed line, even if you pulled them in the second half and then everything went downhill like that way, okay, I get it. But the fact you came out that flat, the fact that even if it was a quarter, whatever, you still had a chance to still clinch everything, and you still come out and play that performance, that was just bad overall. And when that you have stuff on a line like that for it, I just don't see how you can just go, okay, yeah, we can flip a switch next the following week because it's just gonna get better. This means more now.
Yeah,
Come on.
somebody's got to tell Dallas quick history lesson, and it's not all that far back in history. The Eagles have gone to 2 of the last 6 Super Bowls, and both times they had all their playoff games at home. So you're playing possum there, big guy, and just waving goodbye to home games. That's not the brightest strategy I've ever heard, Dallas. I'd rethink that one if that was actually the way you were thinking or anybody else on that team did. I did see this morning, Chris, and we're all trying to figure out ways how to get the ship turned around and right and everything else. Power ratings. We spend way too much time during the year with power ratings. Oh, you can power rate playoff teams too. There are 14 of them. And the power rating I saw, I had the Philadelphia Eagles rated 14th. Last. Out of all the teams in the postseason, they actually take into consideration the way they're playing right here, right now. They got the Eagles 14th. 13th, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the 2 worst teams in the playoffs are facing off against each other Monday night. Is that the hope that, the Eagles stink, but so do the Bucs. So why don't we just stink a little less and find a way to win the game? Is that how the Eagles have to come into this one?
According to that, it makes it feel, it does kind of feel, it feels like a playing game for the NCAA tournament, like this field of 60, 65 and 66.
65 and 66.
Everybody got that now.
Yeah.
Oh,
right.
goodness. But
I might steal that, Chris. I'm going to call it a playing game. Yeah.
Go for it. Looking at this, it does feel like, because we were all scoreboard watching red zone and everything else. And you're looking at the Bucs offense. I know Baker was hurt, but still you have pieces, and it was like
not look good. Dave Canales is getting head coaching interviews. Maybe he's not going to be focused. Dave Canales.
Yeah.
He's not going to be focused. Yeah.
Was Monty Osiport involved in that? No, I'm just kidding. That stuff. But when you look at that, when you look at everything else, I just look at that they can't score. They're having offensive issues themselves. But the thing I see is at least their defense is stopping somebody. And even if it's the Carolina Panthers, as bad as they are, as much as they probably mailed it in, but I just look at that and I'm just like, the Bucs offense might stop, but we've heard the same thing about the Giants. We've heard the same thing about the Cardinals. We saw the same thing about Drew Lock when he's leading the offense, and each time you're like, oh yeah, this is the week that the Eagles defense make a stop, but every time it's like, let's play passive defense, let's play this zone, or let's blitz into an area where this team could pick it up, and then next thing you know, it's like a big gap somewhere else, and it's to me, it doesn't. You can't even look at that. It's to this point now. You got to look at this team differently, and I'd have to agree. I probably was going to put them like 12, but looking at it more and more, thinking about it now, 13, 14, 30 versus 14. Yeah, this is where we're at right
13, 14. Wow. Yeah, I'd have to think about that, but I definitely wouldn't put the Eagles last because I think they're better than Tampa.
Yeah, they have a better roster. It's just the way they're playing right now. You just look like.
So you'd flip 14 and 13.
At least I'd have to think about some of the other teams, but I'm at least
Eagle fans. Thank you, John McMullen, for that.
Yeah, I'm at least flipping that.
They appreciate your confidence.
You know what?
They're not 14th. They're 13th.
I shouldn't tease because I got to predict a game. I shouldn't tease where I'm going, but I just tease where I'm going. So.
A whole bunch of stuff can come down between now and
that's true.
Monday,
that's true. That's true.
And when you look at it too, also the Steelers, if you had to play head to head right now against all these teams, the only 2 teams I think you probably have a shot, comfortable that you think you at least have a shot, or you can turn things around, are either them or the Steelers.
Yeah, the Steelers. Yeah, I put them ahead of the Steelers as well. So the Eagles are moving up. They're
12th, maybe. Up. That's about it. Yeah, it's like
with a bullet. Is that what you're saying here? The Eagles are rising. I don't know about that.
Well, now one of the issues is I can picture, at least if you want to be positive, if you want to go Brandon Graham, let's play Brandon Graham. So you want to be optimistic. I can picture the Eagles offense turning the switch on because they have good players. Defensively, I can't even picture it, Chris. I can't even picture this team playing well defensively. I've never seen anything like it. They get worse when it comes to communication. I asked Nick about that yesterday. They've gotten worse. Usually, even with bad defenses, as the season goes on, you get progressively better when it comes to the communication aspect. They get worse and worse and worse. How do you explain it?
I wonder if something where they're tinkering so much, like they're trying to fix it, and then you think you've done something one way, then you're trying to fix it through practice and try to switch it up to try to fix these things, and you got so many different tinker stuff that you change and everything else now that it's not flowing right, and then everybody look around like, no, we're supposed to do this, no, we're supposed to do this, well, you're supposed to be able to. I think it's one of those things. It could be one of those things where you're trying too many changes instead of just like basically getting back to your fundamentals and working what works base and then building off of that to the point where I think they're looking like, okay, what's going on, and just run around. And especially offensively, you look like when it comes to the blitzes too, like they've handled these blitzes before, but you don't know what's going on. And even to the point where you're looking for the out route, the hot routes, you're looking for those, you can't find them. It's a weird thing that's going on like right now. I think it's almost one of the things where they're just trying too many things. You want to see them try to change things to get them out of this rut, but there's so many changes going on. They're looking like their head spinning, like, oh, what's going on? It's not working as well as it could be.
Jody, can I follow up real quick?
ahead.
Just because one thing you said there, Chris, hot routes. Now, I've been saying about this, and I want to run this by you as well. And I went back and looked, when Phillip Rivers, as we know, Nick loves him as a quarterback, for those who don't know. When he was in Indianapolis, the Colts had some hot routes. They don't have them here. I'm starting to look at the quarterback. I'm starting to look at one and say he's not comfortable with that stuff. And I see when blitzes come and he starts blushing. Is that more on Jalen Hurts? Because he's done it in the past, Nick Sirianni. He's put these hot routes in his offense in the past. They're not here now. Who's to blame for that? The quarterback or the coaching staff?
I think it's three. Quarterback, coaching staff, and something like that. To me, it's always the quarterback, coaching staff, and receiver, because you need them all to be on the same page. You have to the coaching staff that has those routes installed, and then make sure that they're in the right areas to get rid of the ball in that one. You have to have the quarterback that's on the same page, knows what the coaching staff wants, and knows where to throw the ball to in those areas. And you have to have the receivers to recognize that, you know what, hey, I see somebody, especially if you're in a slot or something like that. Hey, I see somebody coming from the inside. I see an area that's vacated. Make sure I go to the right area so that way when the quarterback throws it, it's not going to the opposite side where there's nothing there. So I think it goes at all levels. I think to me on this offensively, I think coaching staff, quarterback, and receiver or something like that.
All right, Chris, I'm going to drag you into a debate that John and I have from time to time. And I know I sound like a broken record on this, but I still question how the Eagles practice, what they do with their practices, how they allocate their time and their effort and everything else. And John almost always goes down the road of, yeah, but Jody, they can't. The CBA doesn't allow that. You can't go back to Westchester and think that they're ever. I get it. They're not. I get it. It's not happening. John has made the point successfully. He's pounded it into my head. I get it. They can't practice like they used to. But Javon Hargrave came out today and said, yeah, with the 49ers here, we work in practice. With the Eagles, it's chill. And then with them, don't bust it as much. Don't worry, not as much intensity and the like. A star player left the Eagles, is still a star player with the 49ers, now a major rival. And he said, oh, yeah, there's a difference between the practice here in San Francisco and Philadelphia. Does that reverberate at all in the Eagles Hall? Do they hear that at all and go, yeah, maybe we need to think about this either on the coaching staff or the entire organization from top to bottom? Will that make any waves whatsoever that a former star player came out and goes, oh, yeah, piece of cake practice in Philadelphia?
No, I don't think so. I think because as much as we've seen walking through that facility, so all that sports science stuff that they have, like, or at least in that little corridor we get to walk through every day, like, they have a lot going. They have a lot invested in it, and for the most part, before this season, it worked. I mean, it looked like it was working, and they had the guys refreshing and everything else like that. The one thing I think may change is when we look at training camp next year, maybe we see something a little bit more, maybe a little bit more thud, so they at least get the where you get at least some contact, where you're not tackling to the ground and all that stuff, so you don't risk the injuries there. I think maybe you see more emphasis on tackling as well too. I think that's something you'll see more in training camp too. But right now, like when they get in the in-season thing, I don't think they're going to change on that. I don't think it's changed. Is that now? Like during the regular season, we don't get to see like all the full practice. I'm not thinking like they're going like, okay, you know what? Okay, yeah, we ran our two series. All right, get the lounge chair, sit back, get a Mai Tai, and go. Okay, yeah, we're fine. Okay, we'll see this matchup zone here. Maybe like they're playing like that right now, but nothing like that. But I think overall in training camp,
the number's 13. I think 13 padded practices,
it's tough.
Yeah.
He's gonna maximize those.
It's not the way it used to be, that's for sure, around the NFL. But with Javon, I don't know. I didn't see the whole interview. I don't know if you did, Jody, but I bet you said he'd like Philadelphia better. From his perspective, they don't want to practice, so they're happy with it, the veteran guys. The issue comes with the younger players, and the Eagles have had to lean on some younger players this year, especially defensively, and it hasn't worked out for them. I want to talk about personnel, though, because I think they have the personnel on offense, as I said, to turn it around. I don't know if they're going to, but I think they have the personnel. I don't think they have the personnel on defense to turn it around. Is that on Howie Roseman, or is it just some bad luck, injuries, Nakobe Dean, some of the safety issues, or is it just he made some mistakes?
I think when you look at maybe the linebacker area, maybe like at least to start the season, maybe has a little bit more depth, so you didn't have to rely on getting in probably either through the draft or through the first wave of free agency in March that you had some depth. Granted, I know you had to pay the secondary guys, and you had to pay some of these free agents to come back, and you thought you had that defensive line to still be able to put pressure. So I think the more actually didn't get the pass rush, started to put more stress on that back seven. And I think that's when you start to look at maybe had a better linebacker on that. I don't fault him for trying to continue to fix it as the season went along, like bringing in Shaq Leonard and trying to get Byard and stuff like that when he had those injuries and had those opportunities to get the guys. I don't fault him for that because it was worth a shot to see. He thought he could get more out of some of these guys as well too. So I think more of the initial wave in the depth on this defensively, just some of the guys that they wound up signing, I think that went a long way because I think that's where you start to see that. I think if you had a lot more initial depth, I think they would have been all right, a little bit better than what they are right now.
Although it pains me to say this because John will attest, I was about as big a Nakobe Dean fan as there were when he became a Philadelphia Eagle. I wanted to take him in the second round, forget about the third. So I was ecstatic when he became a Bird. He didn't do all that much before he got hurt this year. So if you're going to put it out, he lost Nakobe Dean. So what? Nakobe wasn't playing great when he got hurt. So I'm not buying that or accepting that as an, oh my God, how will we expect to go on without Kobe Dean? What was Kobe Dean doing before he got hurt? I digress. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Kobe comes back and is a Pro Bowl linebacker next year. Please, please, please.
I think where he's missed so much time that you get out that see that thing. You just need a flow. You just need to get used to everything. And every time he starts to get look like okay, one foot's getting the other, he's starting to make some headway. Then he's out because he's hurt. So that's why I think a lot of that is right. Like if you ask me about that for the first couple injuries, I'm like, all right, cool, you to that. Now, especially with the plantar fasciitis stuff, and that takes a long time to heal, as we can see and we can attest. And looking at that, I'm really starting to worry. So down to the point now, you got to look at using one of your second round picks to use it on him. You got a linebacker again.
He's becoming an injury plagued player. All right, let me quickly swing the pendulum completely in the other direction. Quez Watkins didn't do enough last week to make the Eagles believe that he's still a confident wide receiver in the National Football League.
It's a playmaker. He was the Eagles' biggest playmaker last week on Sunday.
He was. He really was. Like the deep route on against the sideline he just missed. Okay, yeah, I get that. But everything else.
To be fair to Quez, that was a hell of a nice. That was he went up and got that touchdown.
Yeah, he did.
High pointed the football. Here's my thing with Quez. In all seriousness, I always say, and I've used this analogy with Jody before. to the baseball utility guys. Some guys, if they are only, and I'm going old school because baseball's changed so much, but they would play like once a week, and a lot of guys couldn't, get up and not have those consistent at bats and perform. And there were certain guys who could do it and be really representative and were solid utility players, as they would call them. I think Quez is one of those guys who needs the football to be any kind of success. And when he gets one or two opportunities every now and again, he can't do it. So it's not going to be meaningful here because they have AJ and Devontae. But I think when he goes somewhere else next year, I think he's an NFL player. I think he is.
Do you think he's good enough to be an NFL number 2?
No.
If you're saying he needs action to realize his highest potential, he can't be that fill-in part-time guy. Where is he going to go and be the number 2?
I think he could be a legit number 3 where they get some passes his way and he could be fine.
A 3,
I think he'd
not
be a
behind a
2.
Smith and a Brown. Okay.
I think he's an Aguilar type where he's not just, if he doesn't use them on screens and go routes, if you use them in some areas, I think he can have a type of career like Nelson Aguilar's had. That's where I think he's.
Yeah,
I think he's all right. Like
there are other teams. The Eagles don't get the ball to the third guy. There are other teams that do. The third guy you'll see all over the league. He's got like 40, 50 receptions, and they get consistent traffic each week. I think he would be better in that kind of role. Not that he'd be great, but I just think he's a legitimate NFL player. I think
he's fourth in this offense because they want to get Dallas Goedert involved. When you hear about the 3, Brown, Smith, and Goddard, and then now he's fourth in this one too. So. Yeah, the volume wise, it's slower. Like, when he goes somewhere, because I can't.
And I don't even know if he will, because he did nothing this year. So I don't think anybody's going to be breaking down his door saying, "Oh, we got to get Quez Watkins to be part of our offense." But if there's injuries and he gets a chance, like he did, it was a meaningless game, but he looked a hell of a lot better when he was getting involved than he does when he's sort of an afterthought.
All right, Chris Franklin, I need an end of season regular, hopefully playoffs, things turn around. Evaluation of an Eagle player. Missed 3 games, 59 catches on 83 targets, 592 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's Dallas Goedert. And the coach told us the offense runs through Smith and Brown and Goddard. Goddard is not only third, he's a distant third. Why? I think it's an underachieving year for Dallas Goedert. If you disagree, please do so. If you agree, if you can give me some reasoning as to why Dallas Goedert put up the middling numbers he did all year.
That's my blind spot. For the life of me, I'm looking around like the type of routes he's run, the type of how he's being utilized and everything else. I don't know. Like, he's had a couple drops here and there, yeah. But I also look at the way they use them, like allows reception for on like screens or within like 10 yards and stuff like that in the offense. I think his strength is really getting toward the seams. And when teams start going cover 4, they can't really run that seam route. You have to run those sits and stuff left. They start running cover 3. I think he's a great weapon to have, and this team's not playing it. I wish they would just get him the ball, especially over the middle more, but we know how this team has issues sometimes throwing the ball over the middle. So it's a little bit of coaching, and it's a little bit of him as well too. And those numbers for the type of caliber tight end he is, they're low. Because I thought, to me, going into the season, he was one of the top 5 receivers, and look, those stats he put up aren't top 5 worthy.
Before the season, I said it was. Put them in any order you want: Kittle, Kelsey, Andrews, and then it was Dallas Goedert. Now coming out of it, I got to put Laporta ahead of him. I got to put T.J. Hawkinson, who tore his ACL, so who knows where he's going to be. But he was having a great season.
You want another one? You could put McBride ahead of him.
Trey McBride. I'm not going that far. Yeah, he's a good player. I like him. I think
if you're ready to run Laporta up there that fast as a rookie, check McBride's numbers.
Laporta, though, he's I saw McBride play. McBride's like more of an old school Y-back tight end. I think Dallas is way more athletic. Laporta can do both. Laporta's really good, really good.
Yeah.
And so is TJ. Who knows if he'll be healthy? But yeah, he took a little bit of a step back. I think that's fair. He's still a good player. I'm not going to say that about Dallas Goedert. But we'll end it there with you at C. Franklin News. The great Chris Franklin, NJ.com, does a tremendous job covering this team with Bob Brookover now helping out with the Eagles. How far are we going to go, Chris? And by the way, when this ends, if it ends this week, who's the scapegoats? Where are we going?
Patricia Desai. Oh, there's a ton you can go with.
The whole defensive coaching, you're going to blow out the whole defensive coaching staff? Except maybe Tracy Rocker?
I can't take away everybody. I think there's a couple holdovers. Because Nick knows DK from way back. I think DK stays. I think Tracy stays. Yeah, I think those, if anything, I think those are the guys that do that. And then from there on out, I just get this gut feeling. It's one of the things that I think if they win, and if they win this week, and it's a decent defensive showing, then I think you got Patricia back for another year. And
I hadn't even considered that.
So this is where it's one of those things. It's like, yeah, it's like he gets more of his guys to run his system because he'll have the offseason to implement it. I think it's time for the Fangio thing. That if you can't get the guy whose system's named after, just move on and try to get the
100%. Move on.
No. What's wrong with you guys? The answer just became available yesterday.
Wink Martindale?
Time to wink in Philadelphia. Bring in Wink Martindale. And you want to make the fan base happy. Get the most blitz-happy defensive coordinator in the last 20 years in the National Football League. You'll put a smile on every Philadelphia Eagles fan's face by hiring Wink Martindale as the defensive coordinator for next year.
I don't think it goes with Nick's philosophy. You know how they talk about explosive plays? Yeah. Blitz leads to more chances of explosive plays. I think you get a different.
Well, that's
Well, hold on. Will that be the driving force? Nick's philosophy this year, or will the new coaching staff be more determined by the owner and the general manager than the head coach's philosophy?
Well, I think I know the answer to what he was saying, because we hear about when he says a lot of times, well, you can win offensively. We ran the wing team, we ran the pro style and everything else.
Yeah.
Defensively, I think it's going to be one of those, you know what? I'm open defensively to it as long as we don't give up explosive plays and look in different ways that way.
And then Wink shows up blitzing from the buses first week one, 80-yard touchdown, bang.
Not impossible, guys. Don't discount it.
I've never seen it possible.
I'm not going to say it's happening, but I think it will at least be considered depending on how the game goes on Monday night. Chris Franklin will get you up next week after the game one way or the other. Thank you very much for hopping in with us today.
All right, thanks, guys. You have a good one now.
That is the Franklin man, Chris Franklin, here with us on Birds 365. Just a quick note. Tight ends who compiled more yards than Dallas Goedert this year. George Kittle and Dallas was 588 yards receiving for Dallas. George Kittle, 1,020. Sam Laporta, 860. Travis Kelce. How'd you leave Kelce out of your list earlier?
No, I said Kelce, Kittle, Andrews. Put them in any order you want. That's what I said.
Kelce, Kittle, Andrews. So yeah. Goddard was 4 in your 4. Okay. Hawkinson, 960. And Njoku, 882.
Yeah, he's really good. And Njoku's really good.
Evan Ingram, 884. Cole Kmet, 678. Jake Ferguson of the Dallas Cowboys. And I questioned that. I said, how do they let Schultz walk out that building and not replace him? Well, Jake Ferguson has 692. Dalton Schultz, 593. He's got more than Dallas, too. And Trey McBride, 791. Almost 800 yards receiving. Dallas Goedert didn't get to 600 this year. So as a rookie,
no, but he did miss 3 games. Like how many of those guys missed 3 games?
I don't know.
So he would have been up in the 700 range, probably not crazy numbers, but would have been a little bit better. But he's, that's part of it too, because he missed 5 games the year before. So, I mean, durability is part of it. He plays recklessly, like I'd like to say at times. He runs hard. He won Kyle Brandt's angry run thing twice this year. So part of it is that he plays so physically. He's susceptible to some injuries. He's still a really good player, but I think it's fair what you said. I think before the season, I had him at number 4. I forgot about Njoku. I'm definitely putting Laporta ahead of him. I'm definitely putting Hawkinson ahead of him. I'm definitely putting Njoku ahead of him. Maybe Evan Ingram, who had a big year, but he's more well-rounded than Evan Ingram's just a receiver in my mind.
Same with Kyle Pitts, who also had more yards.
Kyle Pitts, same thing. He's just a receiver. Right. So he's still top 10, but I think he's fallen back a little bit.
Yeah, if I told you he's not in the top 5 before the year started, you probably would argue with me. Of course he's in the top 5. He's not
definitely
in the top 5.
I had him at 4. He's definitely not in the top 5 now. I definitely Laporta, Hawkinson, and Njoku. Bang, bang, bang. And those 3 guys at the top are still. And Mark got hurt, but he's still a great player.
Agreed. All right, he's McMullen. I'm McDonald. We come back, put a bow on the show here on Bird Street 65.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At McMullen Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their fantasy pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
EAGLES, Eagles.
All right, couple of things before we get out of here. We're running late on Bird 365. Johnny Mac, is today coordinator Tuesday or?
No, push back a day because it's a Monday game. So Everything pushed back a day. Coordinators tomorrow.
Will it be a walkthrough Thursday then?
Walkthrough Thursday, yes. Walkthrough Thursday, Friday, the big practice of the week, Saturday, the light practice, day before the game. Yeah.
Walkthrough Thursday somewhere. Javon Hargrave giggles, but that's just me pointing out.
Hey, Javon loved those walkthroughs. Trust me. He loved them. Every veteran loves them.
I don't think he's complaining about the results this year in San Francisco. And oh, by the way, tomorrow our buddy Mike Gill will be aboard. If you want to write in the chat what T-shirt you think Mike Gill's going to be wearing, feel free. You could influence Mike Gill's T-shirt choice. Little side fun thing we have going with Gill on what T-shirt will he be wearing. I will predict it'll be a university that neither he nor I nor John would be accepted at. That Mike Gill will somehow rep a T-shirt from a university which too high standards to allow either Mac or Mike in. But that will be tomorrow. McMullen, I'm back here in 22 hours. I'm hoping you're by my side. Is that the case?
I'm planning on it. We're all day to day, Jody. You know me. Day to day.
Is the Eagles defense day to day at this point, or have they?
I don't know if they are day to day. They might be a lost cause. But hey,
is someone looking up at the clock somewhere to declare what time the body died?
Somewhere, BG's going to hear that what I said, and he's going to say nobody believes in us. And
that McMullen guy, that McDonald guy, we're burying the defense.
That's going to be the rallying cry. Nobody believes in us. Let's go. Let's go beat Tampa.
Their best chance is Matt Patricia loses the pencil. If he just takes out the pencil, that could be the key to an improved Eagle defense.
Congratulations to Martin Frank, by the way, because the Michigan Wolverines.
That's right. Martin's a Michigan man, huh?
Michigan man. And by the way, real quick, I know we got to go. The Eagles are not hiring Jim Harbaugh. Forget about it. Ain't happening.
The Commanders might. And there was a report out this morning that the Bears, although most of the reports leading up to last week's loss against the Packers was Eberflus had done enough to keep his job, but now they're
Chicago,
Chicago, Michigan man. I meant to ask is if anybody's still on the stream, we got 300 and change of you guys. Thanks for streaming in today. Hit me on Twitter at Jody McMahon, JODYMACMAN. If you know the answer to this, as my Twitter handle right there on the screen. Did you stay up for the end of the college football game last night?
I did not. I passed out.
I was on the air till 3 a.m. So I was on the air when the game ended and they had the post-game celebration. Who was the babe on the stage?
I think it was the quarterback's girlfriend. There's some, I believe, if it's the same girl, there's a sort of video clip going around with, I probably shouldn't talk about it, but she's very attractive.
She was outrageous. I'm going, who is that up there? The quarterback, the coach. Well, I know it's not Harbaugh's wife, but she and they got her in the shot as often as possible.
Oh yeah, those camera guys, by the way, in the woke world we live in, those camera guys still find the pretty girls.
God bless them. Thank you very much for that. Yeah. If you concur with John that it was McCarthy's girlfriend, please.
And I don't know, because there was the clip in the stands of his girlfriend, I believe.
She was on the podium last night, and she's a very, very good looking woman. All right. He's McMullen. I'm McDonald. We got to get out. Bill Colorulo Power Hour next. We'll be back here on Birds 365 in 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.